Welcome back, everyone, to Star Wars Abridged. Today we will be going through Chapter 12 of Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire. In the last chapter, we saw Luke go to Dagobah, and he found an artifact, and then in this chapter, we will be with Han, Leia, and the rest of the crew on the Millennium Falcon. So let's go ahead and jump into it, but before we do, make sure that you are subscribed, leave a like, and if there's any Star Wars book that you would like to hear told in an abridged version, go ahead and leave that in the comments. But let's jump into chapter 12, and as I said, it takes us back with Han, Leia, and the rest of the Millennium Falcon crew. So the chapter starts out with Han telling a security guard in the Athega system that he doesn't have a transmit permit for the planet Inclon, that he's just trying to reach Lando Calrissian, and that is yet another callback to the original trilogy. And I apologize if I'm not saying the name of the planet right. I think it's Inclon, and that's what we're going to go with, but if I'm not saying that right, I apologize. So Leia kind of chuckles at this and tells Han that she's just remembering the past. So she even sees the similarities between this interaction and the one when they were trying to reach Cloud City. Han tells the security pilot to call Lando and tell him that an old friend wants to play sabacc. Leia is confused and doesn't know why Han would even suggest something like that, but he says that Lando will know exactly that it is Han saying it, and that he doesn't even have to give up their identity to the security pilot by saying this, which obviously gives them an extra layer of protection. Chewie warns Han that something is approaching from their starboard side, something big. The officer comes back over the transmitter and says Lando has granted them permission to come to Inclon, and that they'll even have an escort. Han, who is still uneasy about the approaching ship, finally sees what it is. It was actually a part of the escort, a shield ship to fly alongside the Falcon and protect it from the sun. Inclon is very, very close to its sun, and if the Falcon were to make the journey there without any protection, it would actually get the hull of the Falcon melted. So that's why the shield ships are there. Han, who is impressed by these shield ships, tells Leia all about them, and then a voice from the shield ship comes over the transmitter and tells Han to share his slave circuit code so they can lock their ships together and jump to light speed. That way they'll be at Inclon in no time. Han, however, tells him that the Falcon doesn't have a slave circuit and that they'll just have to manually fly alongside them without jumping to light speed. Han then asks the shield ship's pilot how long it will be before they reach Inclon, and the pilot says that without hyperspace it will take about 10 hours, so it's a good flight over there. After a few moments, Han realizes that the shield ship pilot hasn't taken his standby engines offline yet, and so Han's like, what's the holdup? What are we waiting on? The pilot says that there is another ship inbound that doesn't have a slave circuit, so they're just going to take them and the Falcon in together, make it more convenient for everybody. Han instantly gets very spooked. He's like, okay, what's going on? Why would there be another ship coming to Inclon without a slave circuit conveniently at the same time that we are? He gets very spooked, upset, a little bit nervous. So he asks the shield ship pilot if they can ID the other ship, and the pilot says no, and that other ship is also perfectly staying in a blind spot where Han and Chewie or anybody else on the Falcon can't see it. So Han goes down to the quad cannons that the Falcon has, and he gets those ready in case that there's an attack incoming. All kinds of different possibilities are running through Han's mind at this point about what the ship could be. Is it a TIE fighter? Is it some kind of modified Imperial ship? What could this ship possibly be? Is it a decoy? Could there be a trap set? He's going through everything. Leia then comes over the comms and says that she can see that it's an X-Wing. Just as it comes into view, Luke comes over the comms and announces himself, but it's not over. Han is not really buying it at this point. He thinks back to Fash and how they used a decoy of the Millennium Falcon to try to capture them, and he's wondering, is this another one of those situations? Could this even be a fake Luke? Could they have found somebody that sounded like Luke and built an X-Wing that looks like Luke's? Could they be going this far to try to capture us? That's kind of what's running through Han's mind at this point. So Han is asking Luke some small talk questions like, what is he doing there? Why does he need to come see Lando? Just stuff like that. And at this point, he actually gets so nervous that he points the Falcon's cannons over at Luke's X-Wing. So, still nervous, Han tells Leia that they need to confirm that that is Luke and they need to confirm it fast. Leia thinks that it's him, but she can't be positive. But she does have an idea. So, as Han continues to stall Luke, Leia brings 3PO to the transmitter and gets him to start talking, and 3PO asks about R2, asks if R2 is there. A few seconds later, R2 comes back, he's beeping and all this, talking back to 3PO, being as sassy as he always is. So, this is enough proof for Han and Leia, and they relax a little bit. Han assesses what just happened, and he actually, really admires Leia for being such a quick thinker and being so on her feet with this. And then there is a bit of a time jump. We skip to about 10 hours later when the Falcon and Luke's X-Wing are reaching Incline. So, Han says that he has a lock on Lando's mining operation and that they'll be there momentarily, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Leia mentions that something is really bothering Luke, and she just kind of lets Han know that he might want to talk to Han about something. Han's like, well, he's not said anything yet, but when he's ready to talk, he'll talk. He'll talk when he's ready. So then, a very, very interesting thread from this book ties together. Leia sees a group of lights on the planet's surface and thinks that that is the city that they're traveling to. Han, however, says no, and here's the important part, and says that it is more likely a group of mole miners. Pause for dramatic effect there. He then says that he heard Lando has over 100 of them. Another dramatic effect pause. But if you're still wondering why I'm making such a big deal about this, remember back to a few chapters ago when Thrawn said he was in need of 40 mole miners. Well, Lando has over 100, so more than double what Thrawn needs. And also, that's not it. Also, remember back a few chapters to what Pellaeon said to Thrawn when Thrawn asked about the progress that they had made with the mole miners. Pellaeon said to him that they hadn't made any progress at that point, but he said that their best bet in finding as many as they needed would be the Athega system, which is where we are now. So, we know that the Empire could possibly be stealing mole miners from Lando in the Athega system, where all of our characters are right now. So, that just back to the story, but I just wanted to point that out and point out how some of these chapters and storylines are connecting. They're starting to come together. And when you're listening to someone talk about a book like this and not actually reading the book yourself, it can be hard to make some of those connections. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. But back to the story. So the Falcon finally comes into view of Nomad City, and it is absolutely spectacular. Everyone is just in awe of Lando's mining operation that he literally built from the ground up. Lando then actually comes over the comms and he's welcoming Han and Leia and Luke into the city. They go through a bit of small talk, and Han tells Lando that they actually need some help. They're not just there for a friendly visit. Lando, of course, agrees to help them, but he's busy at the moment, but he is going to send someone down to the landing zone and meet them at the dock. Han says, make sure it's somebody that Lando trusts, and then the transmission gets scrambled, and someone is jamming the Falcon. So Han once again goes into panic mode. He's trying to find a clear frequency, and when he does come across one, he hears Lando's voice again calling for anyone that may be able to hear him. Han's like, yeah, I can hear you. What's going on? What's happening? Lando's like, I don't know. It could be a solar flare or something. But then Lando goes quiet for a moment, and Han's like, what happened? What's wrong? Lando lets out a big sigh, kind of a sigh of just disappointment, and says that there is an Imperial Star Destroyer coming into the planet's shadow. So that wraps up chapter 12 of Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire. And man, did that chapter ever go from 0 to 100 just in the snap of a finger. I started out kind of slow just to travel. We're traveling to Inclon, and then by the end, we've got the Empire coming to the planet. We learn that Lando has 100 mole miners. It goes crazy by the end of the chapter. And now in the next video, we'll obviously be going over chapter 13, which still stays in the Inclon storyline, which is about the only storyline that we have right now, other than Mara Jade's. But this time we see things from Luke's perspective. The next events happen in Luke's point of view, but we will get into that in the next video. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. If you've not, or if you're new here, go ahead and make sure that you're subscribed, leave a like. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, may the Force be with you.